What if everything you ever wanted came at the cost of your soul? Lagos never sleeps. Beneath its flashing billboards and ceaseless traffic, a darker world thrives, a world where power is seized, not given. This is the chilling tale of Johnson, a 35-year-old brilliant university graduate who had dreams of engineering breakthroughs was lured into the clutches of a dangerous brotherhood, trading his morals for money, his soul for success. But every rise has a fall, and when his past came knocking, it demanded a price even he wasn't ready to pay. Johnson had done everything right. Graduated top of his class, applied to countless firms, but opportunities never came. His mother, now 60, was struggling with illness, and his younger sister Joan, 31, looked up to him for guidance. The burden of responsibility weighed heavily on his shoulders. Desperation led him to a meeting with an old friend, Ben, his childhood friend, now 36, and one of the wealthiest men in Lagos. With designer suits, luxury cars, and a lifestyle that made others envious, Ben had everything Johnson wanted. But at what cost? There's another way to make money, Ben whispered over a glass of whiskey, his gold watch gleaming under the dim light. A way that guarantees wealth and power. Johnson furrowed his brows. What are you talking about? Ben leaned closer. A brotherhood. They run this city, Johnson. You join them, and you'll never struggle again. Johnson's pulse quickened. He had always seen himself as a man of principles, but his mother's worsening condition was a silent scream he couldn't ignore. Curious but wary, Johnson followed him into the dark corridors of Lagos' secret underworld, where the powerful controlled everything. Ben, a man of immense wealth and influence, introduced Johnson to the Brotherhood of the Black Sun, an ancient secret cult that promised riches beyond imagination, but at a heavy cost. The initiation was brutal. A dark shrine, a blood ritual. Blood was spilled, oaths that could never be broken, and Johnson felt himself slipping away from the person he once was. The high priest, an elderly man with piercing eyes, placed a hand on Johnson's shoulder. You now belong to something greater than yourself, the high priest intoned, his piercing gaze fixed on Johnson. Loyalty is rewarded, and betrayal is death. Johnson hesitated, but nodded. He had no choice now. The weight of his decision settled in his chest like a stone. His first mission seemed bizarre. Spend 7 nights sleeping in a cemetery, a ritual meant to test his endurance and commitment to the Brotherhood. Each night, he lay on the cold, damp ground, surrounded by ancient, crumbling tombstones under the watchful gaze of the moon. The eerie silence was often broken by the rustling of unseen creatures and the distant howls of stray dogs. On the 3rd night, whispers filled the air, carried by the wind, sounding as though they came from the graves themselves. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and the weight of unseen eyes bore down on him. The sense of isolation and terror grew heavier with each passing night. By the 7th night, Johnson was weak, sleep-deprived, and trembling. When the high priest appeared in the pale moonlight, his cloak billowing eerily, Johnson barely found the strength to kneel before him, his mind teetering on the edge of reality and nightmare. You have walked through the abyss and returned, the high priest declared. The Brotherhood accepts you. With his intelligence, Johnson quickly rose through the ranks, handling the cult's cyber operations, laundering money, and executing high-stakes scams. But his ascent wasn't just about strategy, it was built on blood. Anyone who dared to double-cross him met a swift and brutal end. Some were found floating in the murky waters of Lagos Lagoon. Others disappeared into the night, never to be seen again. Johnson made sure betrayal was met with punishment so severe that even whispers of disloyalty sent shivers through the Brotherhood. One by one, he eliminated threats, ensuring his reign remained unchallenged. The wealth poured in luxury cars, penthouses, and power beyond his wildest dreams. But with power came paranoia. 5 years had passed since Johnson cemented his place at the pinnacle of Lagos Underworld. Wealth and power surrounded him, glistening skyscrapers, high-end cars, and a legion of followers who trembled at his command. Yet, despite all he had gained, a heavy emptiness lingered. The ghosts of his past clawed at his conscience, each memory a dagger in his soul. On one of the Brotherhood meeting, the high priest summoned him for his next ritual. This time, the demand was unthinkable. He was to sacrifice his own mother to prove his loyalty. Johnson's blood ran cold. The wealth, the influence, the protection, all of it came at a cost too great. He refused. The room fell silent, eyes burning into him with betrayal. "Then you have chosen your fate," the high priest whispered. Each night, he would wake in cold sweats, haunted by the faces of those he had betrayed and the lives he had taken. But there was no out, only deeper darkness. One evening, as he sat on his luxury balcony, Johnson watched the city lights flicker like dying embers. His wealth, once a fortress, now felt like a cage. He had everything but peace. His mother's warning replayed in his mind. He remembered the day he returned to the village, eager to introduce his newfound wealth to his mother and sister. He arrived in a convoy of luxury cars, dressed in the finest suits, believing they would welcome him with open arms. Instead, their faces were grim, their eyes hollow with fear. "We do not want any part of this wealth, Johnson," his mother said, refusing to step forward. "Since you became wealthy, nightmares have tormented us. Dark figures chase us in our sleep, whispering your name." His sister clutched their mother's arm, shaking her head. "We have seen visions of blood, Johnson. We do not know what you have done, but we know it is not good. We do not want to be part of it." Johnson felt his chest tighten. "Mama, everything I have done was for us," he pleaded. "For you, for our family." His mother's gaze did not soften. "Not all wealth is a blessing, my son. Some riches come with curses. You have strayed too far, my son. Return before the darkness consumes you." The words stung deeper than any betrayal he had faced in the underworld. He had amassed everything he ever dreamed of, yet the two people he loved most wanted nothing to do with it. That night, as he lay awake in the village, the echoes of their rejection replayed in his mind, leaving him with an emptiness no amount of money could fill. Determined, he made a decision. He would leave it all behind. He went to the Brotherhood shrine and dropped his occultic garment, pot, ring, and other fetish items, severing his ties to the dark forces that once controlled him. The act felt both liberating and terrifying, as if he was shedding his old self for an uncertain future. Johnson liquidated his assets, donating most of his wealth to orphanages and charities. The Brotherhood retaliated, branding him a traitor, stripping him of his remaining fortune, and casting him into exile. An attempt was made on his life, but he miraculously survived it, crawling out of an alleyway, bruised and bloodied, with nothing but his will to live. Friends turned to enemies overnight. The life he built crumbled around him, but he felt something he hadn't in years: relief. With nothing left, Johnson found himself on the streets he once ruled. No security, no money, no power. He wandered through the bustling streets of Lagos, ignored by those who once feared him. The hunger gnawed at him, but he welcomed it. It was a reminder that he was human again. Days turned into weeks, and one evening, as he sat outside a church, a soft voice called his name. He looked up to see Linda, the church cleaner, offering him a bowl of food. "You look lost, my dear," she said with kind eyes. Johnson nodded. "I was once a king in this city. Now I am nothing." She smiled gently. "Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself." Johnson spent his days working in the church, sweeping floors, feeding the hungry, and listening to sermons. Slowly, the burden on his soul lifted. He found solace in faith, in service, and in the realization that true power wasn't in wealth, but in peace of mind. Linda supported him with the little she had, offering kindness when the world had abandoned him. One night, as he knelt in prayer, he whispered, "I am ready to start again." For the first time in years, Johnson felt free. He relocated to the village to join his mother in farming, embracing the simplicity of the land, selling different foods and poultry. Days turned into months, and through hard work and resilience, he slowly rebuilt his life. Over time, his small farm flourished, attracting investors who saw potential in his agricultural efforts. With patience and determination, Johnson once again found success, not in crime, but in honest labor. He became wealthy again, but this time, his soul remained unburdened. As his farm prospered, Johnson never forgot the kindness that had been shown to him in his darkest hour. One day, he made the journey back to the church where he had once sat, broken and hungry. He searched for the beautiful lady who had given him food when he had nothing. When he finally found her, Linda was still cleaning the church. Johnson approached her with gratitude in his heart. "You once helped me when I had nothing," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Now, I want to repay your kindness. Let me support your work." She smiled warmly, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Kindness isn't something that demands repayment, Johnson. But if you truly want to give, then help others as I once helped you." Inspired by her words, Johnson donated a portion of his newfound wealth to the church, funding programs to help the homeless and unemployed. He built a shelter for those in need, ensuring that no one would suffer as he once did. In doing so, he realized that true wealth was not in riches, but in giving back. In time, his bond with Linda grew deeper. With love blossoming between them, Johnson asked for her hand in marriage. She accepted, and together, they built a life rooted in kindness, faith, and hard work. Their farm expanded, their impact on the community grew, and Johnson finally understood that true wealth was found in love and purpose.